Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of me just yapping and ranting about random nonsense. So, today, what I want to talk about and what I want to focus on is how we view the people that we admire and how we view their opinions. So, this is something that I used to struggle with, and I still do. And it's just viewing the opinions or the values of people that you admire through a different lens than you otherwise would. It's kind of human nature, in a sense, to just like, obviously, if someone you respect says something, you're probably gonna give it more like credit than if someone you don't respect says it. But with that being said, for the longest time, like for me myself, I would often just kind of discount the opinions entirely of people that I didn't respect or didn't like. Or I would like, someone I admired would say something and I would just take it at face value. I wouldn't really think about like, oh, well, does this make sense? Or like, oh, is this right? I wouldn't have to. Like, I didn't feel any need to, because, well, of course they're right. They're them. They're quite literally them. Of course it makes sense whatever they would have to say. And a big blatant example of that is like in the political sphere, right? So you've got a lot of people who are ride or die for their political party. In American politics, you've got Republicans and Democrats, and if you belong to one or the other, odds are you're not swapping sides for almost any issue. That's just how partisan American politics are. And with that being said, if you are a Democrat and you hear like Ben Shapiro give an opinion, you're gonna be viewing it through an entirely different lens than if, like, say you like Joe Biden or Bernie Sanders, for example. If one of them gives an opinion, you're probably gonna treat it as if it's true by default, and it has to be disproven to not be true. Whereas in, Ben Shapiro's case, you would view it the opposite, where, okay, this isn't true, and they're trying to prove it. But obviously, this is natural. It's just a part of respect, where if you respect someone, you just give their opinion more value and more credit. And that's fair. That makes sense. But I feel like there's levels to it where if you're instantly discounting anything that anyone says just because of who they are, then you can't really have faith in your own beliefs and ideas, because you're just straight up discounting and ignoring any alternatives. One thing that I've always been a really big, strong believer in is you have to be critical of your own beliefs. You have to be critical of your own ideas. Because if you're not, then how can you be sure that you've considered all options? How can you be sure that you're right when you're too afraid, or you're just too narrow-minded to even consider anything else? So there's a lot of examples of that, but for me, it's always been like, if someone I don't respect, so for example, there's this goofball in high school. When I was in high school, I used to hate this guy. I used to think he was the biggest goober, because he was like a rapper. He was like a rapper, but he wasn't a very good rapper, but he had like all the ego that came with it. And I remember just being like such a needless asshole to this guy, just because, like, oh, he's an egomaniac. Why would I give anything he has to say the time of day? And he wasn't really, for one, like, looking back, he wasn't as bad as I made him out to be. It was just like teenage angst. But in addition to that, he wasn't as dumb as I made him out to be. Like, I thought, like, oh, he has these beliefs, or he acts this kind of way, he has to be stupid. Like, he has to be an idiot. There's no way he can hold any opinions that are worth any sort of value, because he's an idiot. He has to be. But now, like, looking back, like I said, he just wasn't as dumb as I made him out to be. He wasn't an idiot, and I lost out on a lot of like conflicting ideas because of that. Like I was in my own little bubble, my own little world, because I was just so convinced that, you know, the people around me, if they had differing opinions, they were just stupid, they were just dumb. And in a way, I am a hypocrite, because there are some opinions that you can hold that if you hold them, I'm gonna think you're an idiot, because I feel there are some ideas that are more grounded in reality and more reasonable than others. But then there's the conundrum where, am I going against what I'm preaching if I say that? Because you want to give every opinion value. You want to give every opinion some weight. But there are some things that are just flat out wrong. And like, stupidity is a thing. You know, you can have stupid opinions that aren't grounded in reality. And that doesn't mean other people should like take the time to meticulously disprove each and everything if it's just not something that's worth it. Like that's something that's not worth the time and effort to disprove. So, you know, for example, someone thinks the earth is flat. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, well, actually, the curvature, if you come into my fucking rocket ship real quick, if you come to this rocket ship, I can show you that the earth is actually curved. Even if I did that, I guarantee you at least like 50% of flat earthers would still believe the dumb shit that they believe, because they're so deeply rooted in these ideas that they've been taught and told that they can see literal proof in front of them, and they just would not bat an eye. So no, like in that case, it's not worth me sitting there and be like, huh, well, could they be right? Maybe the earth is flat. Because like, it's just objectively not. Like, reasonable proof shows that it's not. That's like basic common sense. I think the lines just start to get blurred when you're taking into account what is and what isn't common sense, and what is and what isn't reasonable. So, in a lot of ways, I know that some of the opinions I hold, people would think them to be unreasonable, and they would think like I would be unreasonable for holding them. And I'm sure that applies to like almost everyone. Everyone has an opinion that someone would find unreasonable, unless they're just like, you know, they don't really think for themselves, which is a whole nother topic that I might eventually get into. But you just get to this point where everyone has these premonitions in their head. They have these ideas of like, this is how things are, and this is how they always will be. And if anyone tries to tell me otherwise, then they're just wrong. So it kind of goes along with like something we went over in philosophy in college. The basic concept of I think therefore I am. The only thing you can be absolutely 100% sure of is that you exist because you can think. Everything else, that is all something that cannot be proven without a doubt, because we do not know the laws of the world. We did not make the world or anything like that. So there's always layers to it. With that being said, like, even though you can't technically be sure of everything, I think that most people would agree, like in the flat earth example, it's pretty unreasonable to think the earth is flat at this point. Like, if you think the earth is flat, you are willfully ignoring a lot of evidence. So there really just are layers to it. There's layers to what's reasonable, what opinion can be discarded, and what opinion needs to be given careful thought and treated with seriousness. And with that being said, and going back to the original concept of the video, where if someone you dislike says something, you're gonna discount it more readily than someone that you do like. There is a reason for that, as we've just gone over. But I feel like a lot of people do kind of like what I did, where I just assume that like someone I don't like is stupid, and no opinion they hold could have any value. which just isn't true. There's like very few people on this earth that aren't proficient in at least something. You could have someone that has an IQ of like 20, but they're really good at golf. Like they're just a golf mastermind. And if they have an opinion on golf, who am I to try to discount them and be like, no, that's stupid, you're stupid? They're probably dumb in a lot of ways, yeah, but they might be, they might have some good insight about golf specifically. So I think it's just worth considering opinions, even from people you disrespect, if it's in an area where they might have more knowledge than you. With that being said, obviously in the political sphere, every single person in mainstream politics has been in it for like years and years and years, and they have a lot more experience than the average person. But even with that, there's still conflicting opinions. So that's why I think there's like a balance between, you shouldn't discount any random opinion that someone has because they might know a lot about it. But even in the case where they do know a lot about it, they can still be wrong. So, for example, like with an example that anyone who's actually watching this might understand, in Smite, even the top level players, they tend to have conflicting opinions about like what's good, how the game should be played, the meta, like, calls, all that kind of thing. But that doesn't mean that they're not experienced, because they are. It just comes down to humanity as a whole doesn't have a precise answer for anything. Like, we don't know with 100% certainty anything. And that's why I think it's important to just consider new opinions, even if it's from a source you don't care for. But again, there are limits to that, and what the limits are is going to differ from person to person. So, for example, for me, I have some family members that are deeply ingrained in some conspiracy shit. Like they're really deep in that shit, and I'm I'm probably not gonna take any article from like a conspiratorial website as seriously as like an actual news site. And there's like a risk reward system there where there is a very small chance that that article from that conspiracy site could be accurate and it could be right. But if you're being presented with so many articles in the past that are wrong, the risk of it being wrong is just much higher than it being right. So at the end of the day, discounting that is ultimately up to you. Like, if someone you dislike, if you are fully convinced that nothing they ever say about a certain topic is ever going to be right, then fair enough. If you want to discard them, then sure. But I just feel like people are a little too quick to do that. They're a little too quick to ignore differing opinions from different people, because they just want to assume that whoever they're talking to has no knowledge in any aspect, like there's nothing to be learned from them. But yeah, I was kind of all over the place this time around, but yeah, that was just me yapping for a little bit, and thanks for listening. Bye.